Morgan is a smart single mom of 3. She's a cleaner at night at a police station. When she knocks over some files, she learns about the case of the murder of Anthony Acosta. He has a wife, Lynette Acosta, who is the main suspect. Morgan is very smart and finds out that Lynette is actually the victim, and with a red marker corrects the mistake on the case board. Inspector Karadik is angry about Morgan's correction and brings her to the station for tampering with evidence. There, Morgan explains that she saw one of the curtains had a tieback missing, which is very suspicious since the rest of the house was immaculate, and that some hair on the chair indicates someone's ankles were taped to a chair, and since the male victim's ankles didn't show they had been taped, there must have been a third person there. Therefore, the wife was most likely a victim too. Security footage of the front door just before the murder caught Lishka Zhang on camera. She had lost a civil lawsuit against Brian Diamond for sexually assaulting her. Lynette Acosta had defended Brian Diamond as a lawyer. She thought at the time that Lishka Zhang was just an employee with a grudge. But Morgan luckily notices that wind in the footage was blowing in the wrong direction for that time of the day. This means the timestamps on the footage were tampered with, and this makes Lishka Zhang no longer a suspect. Morgan has a nice neighbor, Henry, that often babysits on her kids free of charge. She also gets help from Ludo, her ex and biological father of her 2 youngest kids, a baby girl and a smart boy. They're co-parenting the 3 kids. Letty Acosta tells Inspector Karadak that her mother Lynette was upset for days after receiving a letter from a certain Sarah, and that this Sarah killed herself soon after that. That letter is in the office of the law firm where Lynette worked. The police can't get a warrant, but Morgan, dressed as a cleaning lady, is able to read it. It turns out Sarah had been sexually assaulted by Brian Diamond too. Sophia claims she didn't hear her sister Lynette talk about the letter of Sarah and her suicide, which Morgan immediately finds suspicious as the 2 sisters spoke each other often. GPS positioning records show that Brian Diamond wasn't near the murder. He was in the city of Fontana. Morgan finds it very odd that a rich, stylish guy like him would go to a tacky city like that. And Morgan also remembers seeing a brand new small souvenir bought in Fontana by Sophia, Lynette's sister. So she thinks that Brian and Sophia were having an affair. And that is how Brian found out about Lynette feeling very guilty about Sarah's suicide. So Brian and Sophia went to Lynette's house to put pressure on her and ended up killing the couple. They seem to have alibis, but Morgan noticed the flowers withered a day early, and that the house can be turned into a fridge. So she thinks that Brian, after the murder, probably turned the room into a fridge and then remotely turned up the temperature to very warm, which messed with the flowers' freshness and fooled the coroners to estimate the time of death to be a day earlier. Later, the police find Lynette tied up but alive in the home where the sisters grew up. Case solved. Karadak is a strict above-board inspector, but he now understands the value that Morgan can bring. His boss gives Morgan a job offer, which she accepts on the condition of 20% more, daycare for her kids, and a promise that the police will help her solve the sudden disappearance of the father of her oldest child 15 years ago. The daughter feels her dad left her, but Morgan explains that he loved her and just vanished. 2 young men were filming themselves tap dancing on the roof of a tall warehouse when one of them fell onto his car below us. The injured dancer, Damien, is currently fighting for his life in the hospital. Morgan starts her first day at work by investigating this fall on the warehouse roof. She discovers a tripod and a phone. Examining the phone, she noticed smudge patterns that indicated it was used by a left-handed person. And from the lock screen image and a sticker, it seems the owner was Catholic and a baseball fan. Damien fell with his phone, so there must have been 2 persons on the roof. Morgan also thinks that Damien was pushed, as someone killing himself probably wouldn't fall on his exceptional car. Lieutenant Mellon needs an extra pair of hands in a robbery-homicide case. He says any help will do except the cleaning lady, by which he means Morgan. A young detective volunteers. Lieutenant Mellon is getting hammered in the press. 5 jewelry stores were hit in the last 2 months. Karagic and Morgan visit Damien and his mother in the hospital. Damien is still fighting for his life. The mother is convinced that nobody dislikes Damien. She does know that he has made his share of mistakes, but he got his life together and was happy working at B's Body Shop Brothers, a custom auto shop. They hire at-risk youth and ex-cons to fix up cars and get their lives back on track. Damien's 5 co-workers from the Body Shop Brothers visit the hospital too. Morgan can pick out the one on the roof by using the clues from the found phone just by observing who's a Catholic baseball fan and left-handed. This guy, Roland, tells the police how someone pushed Damien off the roof. He couldn't see who. This makes him the prime suspect. Despite numerous security cameras on the ground floor near the warehouse, there was no footage of a third person. However, evidence of foreign paint in the trunk and a modified lock so that it could be opened from the inside led Morgan to conclude that a third individual had entered the warehouse, hidden within the trunk of Damien's car. Morgan suspects that one of Damien's 4 closest colleagues was responsible for the crime. To obtain their alibis, Morgan offers them a deal that they can get Damien's car sooner from the police impound. An assistant at the police will check their alibis with cellular network analysis software. Morgan theorized that the assailant's limited visibility in the darkness led him to bolt the wrong tap dancer off the roof. After all, Damien was very well liked by everyone. So the killer will probably try again to kill the other dancer, Roland. Karadec calls Roland to warn him that he's in danger, but the background music is too loud and the connection is lost. Luckily, Morgan recognized that the 2 songs in the background are from the 90s, which leads the 2 detectives to a 90s party in a warehouse. There they drew late. Roland was shot to death. On security footage, they can see that the killer hit his face with a hoodie, but that Roland reacted familiar towards him, so they just have known each other. And the gunshot generated sparks that occur when there is copper or lead left in the barrel, usually in a very old or poorly maintained gun. These distinctive sparks were also observed as security footage of one of the jewelry store robberies being investigated by Lieutenant Mellon. Eyewitnesses to the first 3 robberies reported the perpetrator fleeing with a driver, each time in a different car. However, in the subsequent 2 robberies, no getaway car was seen, and both incidents occurred near stops along the red subway line. Based on this evidence, Morgan theorized that the robber had lost their accomplice, a getaway driver. The recently killed Roland, with his access to numerous vehicles from the Body Shop brothers, was a prime suspect for this role, so Morgan believes that the robberies and the fall from the warehouse are connected. They also remember Roland saying that Damien helped Roland escape a life of crime as they started posting their dancing videos together, so Roland must have told the robber between 3rd and 4th robberies that he's out. The robber must have been worried that Roland will expose him. He knows where they tap dance, so rigs his trunk to push Roland off the roof, but pushes Damien, then rectifies his mistake at the club, this time with his gun from the robberies. The 2 detectives still don't know who the robber is, but they notice that the robberies usually start after the police gets distracted by a code 3 on the police scanner. So they stay undercover at a jewelry store and call out a code 3. And sure enough, the robber bites the bait and gets arrested. It is indeed one of the co-workers of the Body Shop brothers. Damien is recovering in the hospital and jokingly asks his friends to fix his car. Karadec's boss kept her promise and followed up on Morgan X's car after his disappearance 15 years ago. They found that the car was abandoned in a Costco parking lot a few miles from where Roman and his family lived. Then inside the car there was a box of diapers, which means he didn't intend it to abandon his family. Morgan is very happy with her first paycheck. Now she got her car fixed, her kid's very happy, and Karadec too. He no longer has to drive her around. Detectives Karadec and Morgan arrive at the hotel room to gather clues from the Genshirs. They notice that one towel is improperly folded, and the floor bears streaks from a hasty wipe down, suggesting an attempt to conceal evidence. This indicates murder. They also speculate that the victim had a female companion. In the room's safe, they find a Mexican ID card belonging to the victim, Ernest Lozano. So next to the bathtub, a rinsed whiskey tumbler indicates that they stopped at the hotel bar for whiskey before returning to the room. The bartender recognizes the man on the Mexican ID and confirms that he served the victim and his blonde. As they review the surveillance footage, they see Lozano and his blonde companion enter the room at 8:02 p.m. She leaves at 8:33 p.m., with no one else entering until the cleaners discover Lozano's body. The hotel doorman remembers that the blonde parked a red Kia in a no parking zone reserved for cops and doctors. At a nearby hospital, they can identify the blonde as a doctor. They learn from her that her husband died 9 months ago, and she began a pleasant fling with Lozano 3 months ago. The team discovers that the real Lozano is still alive in Mexico, and that his ID card had been stolen. The victim stole his identity. The Selena is investigating the case of Morgan's ex. A month before his disappearance, he was cited by Lieutenant Mellon for painting a mural in an unauthorized location in a dangerous area. Did he witness something illicit? Morgan is worried about Ava dating a boy. Ludo thinks they should just trust Ava. She has decided to work from home and took the box with evidence home. This angers Koretic. The pants of the victim were repaired with Madagascarian stitching, and they find the Madagascan alteration shop. Nearby, at a parking lot, they find the victim's car with the remote keys. The car is registered to an Eduardo Cortez. Morgan and Koretic then visit his wife and daughter to deliver the news. The medical examiner found Xanax in the victim's body and on the whiskey tumbler, and they find out that the killer must have been an experienced climber that entered the bathroom through the window. On a photo of the victim, they had the tattoo on an arm of the bartender. He confesses to having pointed out potential marks to Eduardo as part of a scam. From checking deposited checks, they learn that a dementia patient had been swindled, and they visit her and her son Kyle. Kyle wears climbing club t-shirt and had short nails, and he confesses. Kyle had been seeking revenge and had been following Eduardo. So this way he met the blonde doctor, who was also swindled, and together they decided to kill the scammer. Morgan receives her official LAPD ID badge and happily snaps selfies with it in the bathroom, until Mia, a sobbing mom, enters crying. Mia is joined by her dad, and they explain the situation to the other detectives too. Her ex was supposed to drop off their young daughters, but he's ghosting her. They have been sharing custody of their daughters. Her ex had become obsessed with environmentalism and wanted Mia and the kids to live off-grid. But Mia runs an online business, so she moved back in with her parents. Her dad doesn't like her ex and calls him a fanatic. Morgan is determined to help the desperate mother. Captain Selena says they'll issue a bolo for her ex's car. Check if he booked tickets out of the country, authorization to search her ex's, and an Amber Alert after the required 24 hours. Child Protective Services deemed him unstable. The ex's nice remote cottage has solar panels and a compost bin. The pink stuffed bunny is lying in the yard, and Morgan recalls seeing it in professional photos with the kids. It's probably a favorite toy and wouldn't have left it behind unless something happened. Morgan and Adam look around the house, which shows signs that the father loved his two daughters. Morgan discovers a survivalist handbook of the missing girls with a photo of an elderly couple at a balcony in it. In the large, well-maintained greenhouse, Morgan notices one big gardening no-no. Cucumbers and tomatoes are planted next to each other. The tomatoes haven't even rooted, so they find the corpse of Mia's ex underneath the tomatoes. He was killed by a blow to the back of his head within the last 12 hours. Asking around, he was last seen yesterday at a cafe arguing with a woman with long red hair. Mia's dad is a rich hotel magnate, so they can't rule out kidnapping for ransom. Dad's maid tells Morgan that Mia's ex was a great guy and a good dad. The last time she saw him, he was coming out of Mia's dad's office last weekend. So Morgan reads Child Protective Services report and finds it fabricated. So they visit the social worker who wrote it and see that his long red hair and went on a holiday to Kauai recently. The social worker confesses that Mia's dad paid for the vacation in return for the negative report, and Mia's ex confronted her about it. He said that Mia's dad needs to be exposed. He had evidence that John bribed lots of people, and it was time to stop John from destroying the planet. After their argument, the social worker told Mia's dad that Mia's ex was planning to do. Mia's dad is arrested, and they interrogate his wife and the chauffeur. The chauffeur first confirms his boss's alibi, but then has to admit that he doesn't know where Mia's dad was last night. Morgan finds the printer that made the photo of the elderly couple in Mia's dad's office, because it has similar pink streaks. The man in the photo turns out to be a San Mateo judge who allowed John to build a hotel in a protected area. A bag in the photo indicates that it was at one of Mia's dad's resorts. They also find out that Mia's dad texted "must speak," urgent, to a prepaid phone. The hotel magnate finally confesses he asked his personal fixer to keep Mia's ex quiet. The police arrest him but still can't find the two girls. He says he got to the remote cottage but left when he saw Mia with her ex in an argument. This goes against Mia's claim that she didn't see her ex the day he died. They find tire tracks of Mia's car at the remote cottage, and that she withdrew $100,000 this morning. Morgan gets upset when the other detectives consider Mia a suspect now. Morgan insists that Mia is terrified mom and not a murderer. Morgan admits she hasn't slept in 27 hours. Watching the news about the two missing girls on TV, Morgan notices a Buddha statue in a photo that wasn't there when she visited. She realizes it was switched. She catches Mia at an antique store trying to sell a real Meng vase, which she also switched. Mia explains she was extorted in a ransom call for $200,000, but only could withdraw $100,000 from the bank. She's selling the vase to pay the rest. Morgan questions Mia about her visit to her ex on the day he died. Mia says she begged him not to report her father, but he refused. At midnight, Karadec follows Mia, who follows the kidnapper's instructions to an auditorium. Karadec shoots at the kidnapper, who flees in his car. With a tracker in the bag with money, they find the guy's car in flames. The girls aren't in the trunk. Morgan inspects the burned car and discovers the driver was into sports betting. She pieces the clues together and realizes the kidnapper is Mia's dad's chauffeur. Morgan recalls the driver parking his car where he could see into Mia's bedroom. He was infatuated with Mia. After not making a sports betting, he decided to kidnap her kids for ransom. We'd have to be rich to date Mia, and picked an evil way to do it. He must have gotten into a fight with Mia's ex before kidnapping the girls. Curtis admits to the murder and kidnapping, but says he doesn't know where the girls are. But he reveals he took them to the mountains, but they ran off. With a large search rescue operation and traces of the survivalist book, they can find the two girls alive and well. Veterinarian Monica is lying dead on the floor of her clinic. Her hands have blotches like from an allergic reaction. The ME believes it's a cardiac arrest. However, dozens of printouts on the floor around her body state a single word: murder. There's a missing blue poison dart frog, and the enclosure's lock is open. Morgan yells to stop Detective Karadec washing his hands, but as he continues, she shoots him with a dart gun. Morgan has figured out there's poison in the soap dispenser. Morgan deduced that Monica was drying her hands when she became paralyzed. After that, Monica couldn't pick up a pen, so she used the voice-controlled printer to indicate she was murdered. They find the missing frog in the soap dispenser. Morgan saw Ava taking a small pill. Ava denies taking a pill, so Morgan goes snooping and discovers birth control pills. A friend of Monica, Bethany, a hairdresser, reported her missing, so they go visit her first in her hair salon. Bethany tells them that Monica was acting strange and said she had trouble with a guy. And Bethany's son saw Monica arguing with a man. Her son helps police sketch the man. Monica's parents can immediately identify him as Shane Seeger. Monica was 16 when she took up with him. He was 21. Her father tried to get her to stop seeing the creep. A year into their relationship, Shane was arrested for robbing a convenience store while wearing flip-flops. He slipped and accidentally fired his gun. They can identify a man that left threatening online reviews about Monica's veterinarian clinic. He was angry at Monica for incinerating his beloved tarantula spider without a warning because of a dangerous virus. He wanted to warn others. One night, he shadowed Monica to a Hollywood address, which is strange as she lived by the clinic in Brentwood. When they visit the flat, they meet their two colleges already there. They got the address in a different way, from takeaway food at the murder scene. In the flat, they find out a room with exotic reptiles and spiders, even the supposedly incinerated tarantula. Monica was trafficking illegal expensive animals. They also find a notepad full of what initially looks like codes but soon reveals house addresses. This leads them to a real estate agent who says Monica was in the process of buying a nice house but needed more money. On photos, Monica sees that this nice house had beehives and a pollinator garden. From the hair salon, they learn that Bethany loved bees. This means that Monica and Bethany were having a romantic relation and buying a house. From Bethany, they know her husband knew about the affair, giving him a clear motive. He admits to the killing and is arrested. But Morgan believes the confession is suspicious. She feels the timeline doesn't add up, but Karadik is tired and is done for the week. Morgan then explains to Karadik that she saw a photo with Monica and Bethany's son with his yellow carrot belt, while today he got his purple belt, so Bethany lied about knowing Monica for only 2 years. Morgan then visits the convenience store that was robbed and then Shane Seeger at Venice Beach. She discovers that Monica was Shane's accomplice and that she was pregnant during the robbery. Then, she notices an unusual genetic trait of ear dimples, leaving no doubt that Bethany's son is actually the biological son Monica and Shane Seeger. When they confront Bethany, Bethany admits to the murder. She had heard Shane yelling at Monica for giving up their son. Bethany was divorcing her husband to live with Monica, but Monica was just trying to steal the son away. Monica's love was just a lie. Bethany's husband just confessed because he didn't want his son to grow up without a mother. Morgan admits to Ava that she was snooping and promises not to do it again. Ava then tells Morgan that she was taking birth control for her acne, not for any other reason. Assistant Sam wakes up with a hangover in her boss' office. She has no idea what happened the night before. It looks like the office has been trashed, and much worse, her boss is lying dead on the floor in a pool of blood. Her boss is Elaine, the CEO, and she was stabbed with a trophy from the Female Innovator of the Year award. The company hosted a party celebrating the launch of a new product last night. Sam says she enjoyed working under the CEO. She admired her. However, Morgan sensed a forced smile from Elaine, and Sam admitted that Elaine had become difficult to work with lately. As the launch of their new product, Canary, drew nearer, Elaine's paranoia grew. On Sam's laptop, they see her latest search was at 10:21 p.m. with what looks like gibberish. And they find a drawing by Sam of her holding a knife. They also find a check for $45,600 that Elaine wrote. Sam had a mix of diazepam and alcohol that could trigger amnesia. Sam admits she scared Elaine, pushed her too hard, and that she killed Elaine. Elaine's husband met Elaine being her first investor. He praises his wife and says they got along fine. He left the party around 10 p.m. Eric is interested in the details of his wife's death. They interrogate the party guests, but nothing stands out except that multiple people heard a loud argument in Elaine's office. With the log of the karaoke machine, they think Elaine was murdered between 10:58 p.m. and 11:01 p.m. Loud songs were played during that time, and a quiet song after that, and nobody heard the argument during the quiet song. Morgan discovers that the strange text Sam Googled wasn't random. Her hands had shifted when she typed GSD-IMHD. She had meant to type PFAS lungs, which relates to a report on the health risks of forever chemicals. This also connects to the word forever written on Elaine's office wall. A janitor at the LAPD complains to Morgan about grease on the vending machine, but it's just flirting, and Morgan flirts back. She even leaves her phone number in grease. Sam discovers a strip of photos in her bra. On the photos, Sam holds a magazine cover of Elaine's face made to look like a devil. Morgan sees that the front desk receptionist uses the same special color of lipstick as Sam on the photos. They interrogate this receptionist. She was supposed to stay at the front desk, but started partying with the rest. She was into Sam and they kissed a little. She saw an unidentified woman rushing out before she could catch up with her. With her description, they can find her back on one of the posters on the wall. Morgan and Karadik go visit her. This woman reluctantly admits she was at the party but wasn't invited, but refuses to cooperate further. Morgan can see she's poor but living in an expensive house, and when they notice cuts on her hand, they bring her in for questioning. She finally admits that Medcare was bribing her to keep quiet about their product's harmful effects on children, including her own son. But her anger increased and she crashed the office party wanting to hurt Elaine. She wrote forever on the wall, cut herself stabbing a stuffed bird, and punched a frame on the wall. Then she ran into Sam in the bathroom and told her how Elaine was hurting kids. But she changed her mind about hurting Elaine and went back home. Adam and Morgan barge into a board meeting and confront Elaine's husband. He admits to providing hush money. Elaine promised to fix the issues. He didn't think they were ready for the launch, but Elaine wanted to continue full steam ahead. Morgan feels the idea behind the canary product is too oriental for Elaine, and remembers cupping marks from traditional Chinese medicine on Elaine's former assistant. This assistant confirms she came up with the idea while helping her daughter. She was happy how Elaine was trying to help many with this idea, and Elaine had paid her well for it. She is horrified that Elaine was murdered with her own trophy. But how did she know about the trophy? It turns out that she had an affair with Elaine's husband. She denies killing and seems she has an alibi entering a hotel nearby with Elaine's husband at the time of Elaine's death. When Sam is brought in and hears Elaine wrote a check of $45,600, she becomes very emotional. This is the amount left on her student loans. Sam realizes this means she killed Elaine and that her life is over. But then Morgan remembers that Elaine became paranoid. Then why was there a mirror behind her desk that allowed visitor to see what she was working on? It turns out to be a two-way mirror with a camera behind it. The camera recording reveals the truth. Sam informed Elaine of her decision to quit because of stress and how Canary was hurting kids. Elaine attempted to bribe Sam with the check to stay. When that failed, she resorted to physical violence. Sam defended herself, and in the struggle, Elaine accidentally fell onto her award, killing her. At this time, Sam hit her head and passed out, so it was self-defense and she won't serve any time. The police team celebrate with drinks in a fancy bar. Morgan thanks Selena for being a great boss. And Karatek reveals that Elaine's husband has promised that the canary product will never be released. Morgan lost in a game to her daughter Ava and must agree for one day to any of her proposals. So Ava asks for a tour of her mother's office. Unfortunately, while Ava is in the restroom, two officers of the National Guard, Brooke and Jeremy, take control of the floor at gunpoint. Brooke holds a detonator and says she can destroy the whole building. They confiscate everyone's phones and weapons. They also have the whole building evacuated except for about a dozen people taken hostage in the major crimes bullpen. SWAT is controlling all points of exit. Karatek, Selena, and Oz are nearby in a van. The hostage takers say that their friend Hansen is wrongly accused of murder and want the cops to find the real killer. Morgan realizes Brooke and Hansen are in love and are planning to start a family. If convicted, Hansen will get at least 25 years in jail for shooting Weber in his RV. The gun had his prints and had traces of acetone which Hansen was using in a home remodeling project. Witnesses reported seeing Hansen and Weber at a bar the night before Weber's death. A bartender said they appeared to be arguing. Hansen was up for a well-paid overseas post but turned it down. Or did Weber deny Hansen the post and Hansen reacted by killing him? But Selena points out that the prints on the gun could be from when Hansen and Weber went to the shooting range together. After checking the evidence, Mellon tells the two assailants that he also thinks that Hansen is the killer, which upsets Jeremy a lot. Luckily, Morgan intervenes and points out that blood splatter has a perfect corner, meaning something was there but was moved before the cops arrived. So Morgan asks Karatek to go into Weber's RV. Karatek can't find a paper with blood, but he can into a laptop and sees that the last thing he printed was a form to accuse a soldier of a crime. Hansen was a model soldier, so it probably wasn't him. Jeremy becomes increasingly antsier and often goes over the edge. At one point, Mellon tries to overpower Jeremy but fails and a shot hits an artery of the janitor's leg. Morgan is able to convince Brooke to let Ava bring Tom outside for medical care. When they check Weber's phone in the evidence box, they can see that on the day of the murder, Weber first went to an address for drugs and prostitution, and then to a private detox center, even though he didn't drink or take drugs. So it appears he picked up someone and took them to rehab. Koradek calls the detox facility, but they don't want to give up the anonymity of their patients, so he starts to inquire at local convenience stores. And one clerk indeed saw a 6-feet-tall guy with a military haircut. They send a photo of the security footage to the hostage takers, but it's too blurry. Morgan suddenly realizes that Weber's phone lacks any incoming messages. This raises a question without communication. How did he know the pickup location? Then she recalls finding a receipt showing Weber bought an air tracking tag 2 weeks earlier. Weber must have suspected his fellow soldier was using drugs and attached the tracking device to him. When the tag showed movement to a known drug area, it confirmed his suspicions and he drove there to bring him to rehab. The app shows the tag was on Weber's RV on the date and time of Weber's murder. And even better, the killer still has the tag on him and they can arrest him. Brooks, relieved that Hansen will be set free, and accepts she will go to trial, but Jeremy reacts by knocking her out from behind. With the detonator in his hand, he demands a better deal. But Morgan then realizes that there are no real bombs. Daphne can overpower him. Morgan reunites with Ava outside. Brooke apologizes to Morgan. Morgan visits Tom in the hospital. Morgan is greeted at work the next day by a huge round of applause and is given her own desk. Lieutenant Mellon promises to stop calling her the cleaning lady.